Hello. Brandon Harvey here with this week's episode of Sounds Good, the podcast where every single Monday I sit down with an inspiring person and talk about happiness, overcoming struggles, and living a life of intentionality and wonder. This week, I'm so excited to share a conversation with Matt Wertz. Matt is a singer-songwriter who's toured with acts like Hanson, Jason Mraz, Gavin Degraw, Five Fighting, and Ben Rector. I've long admired Matt's creativity, his hard work, and optimism. And I wanted to use this episode to kind of dive deep into Matt's background, where his intentional curiosity has come from, and how he's growing in self-awareness. I love this conversation. It was so much fun. So let's just jump straight into it. All right, I am in the studio with Matt Wertz.
And the crowd is going wild.
Welcome to the show, Matt.
Do the people know that there's a live studio audience here?
Yeah, there's thousands of people here.
We're here in the historic Ryman Auditorium. Well, I'm glad to be here, man. This is all that to say.
I'm so glad to have you.
Yeah, thanks for reaching out.
Man, I have been a fan of yours for a long time.
You have? I didn't know this.
Yes,
okay.
I have been.
Okay.
And then when I moved to Nashville, there was a day where, if I remember correctly, there was somebody who bumped into me on the street. They said that they had followed me on Instagram, and they're like, "Oh, let's get a photo together." It was super sweet, super nice. Later that day, I see that same person tweet. They say, "Today I saw Matt Wertz,
oh my gosh,
and Brandon Harvey, best day ever." And I was like, Matt and I have to be friends now.
Dude, that's amazing. I thought you were going to say that they thought you were me.
No.
Because I think we kind of look similar.
Actually, so you and I hung out on election night.
Right.
You came over with your girlfriend, Cadence, who's a good friend of my wife, Sammy.
Yep.
And you guys came over and just kind of like randomly. Cadence is our neighbor.
Right. Yeah.
And so you and I were wearing essentially the exact same outfit.
Right.
And Cadence and Sammy were wearing essentially the exact same outfit.
So we took a picture.
And then we had election night.
Yeah.
Kind of along those lines, your last album you recorded in Los Angeles. You basically were like, let's get away from Nashville.
Right.
And how long have you lived in Nashville?
I've lived in Nashville for 15 years.
Okay, yeah, so you're a pro.
Yes, let's say yes. I'm a pro. I'm a pro at the old Nashville. I don't really know. Every year, I came in, I feel like there's like different classes of like, it's almost like you have like freshman classes of like, of like Nashville. And so I have seen many classes of freshmen in Nashville.
That's so funny.
So when it came to making my last record, it was like, yeah, I was just ready for a change. I realized that the record that I look back on making, I play music full time as my profession, and the record that was like stood out to me as being one of the most special records was the one that I made after I moved to Nashville. And it was songs that were written in a new place with new people and this excitement around like, where am I and what am I doing? And so I thought, like, how can I do that again? How can I capture that same spirit of freshness and also kind of like this like healthy fear of like, I don't know what I'm doing. And simultaneously I've been listening to a lot of music. I created a Spotify playlist called Wertz Wednesday, and every Wednesday I added 3 songs that I was like liking to it. It kept me accountable to be like listening to new music. And I realized after like a few years of that, I like looked at what I was adding to it. I'm like, man, this is all like pop music, and to some degree, some of it's like more indie. But I was like, where's that stuff being made? It's being made in Los Angeles. So kind of put those two things together, and I thought like I probably need to go to LA and see what it's like to try to like live there and create there. And I'm really glad I did.
I love that intentionality.
It was a cool experiment, and it's funny now. I'm like, it's one of those things where everything is about process, right? It's like, and I came back from that like experience and wrote quite possibly the song that would be like a greatest hits song.
Oh.
I wrote that here after the LA thing.
Wow.
So the song called Slow Motion we wrote after all these months spent in LA, and it just kind of shows me, it's like, I think you could look at it and be like, you didn't have to go to LA at all. You wrote that song in Nashville. But it's like, I look at it and I'm like, actually, I did need to go to LA because I needed to like put myself in that and actually like be challenged in those ways and learn to trust my instincts and also be pushed and grow and learn what I can from there. That song probably wouldn't have been written had I not gone and done the LA thing. So
it's the importance of change.
It is. It is.
Do you feel like that plays into your life in addition to your career?
I'm sure that it does. I mean, but at the same time, I feel like at war with myself because, which I think we'll probably end up talking about later, but the Enneagram. Woo! Ding, 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 ding. So on the there's this personality. What do they call it? A personality
type
typing thing.
Yeah,
system. It's like 9 numbers, and you're one of 9, but then you can have like wings that are like greatly also impacting the way that you see the world and what you're motivated by. And I'm a 7 with a 6 wing. So the 7 is like the is it the enthusiast?
Yeah, the enthusiast.
So 7-6. The 6 is the loyalist, and 6 is very security oriented, and is kind of afraid. Like the America as a whole is like a lot of 6 is like the most common Enneagram type in America. We're like kind of we're fearful of authority, but we also want authority. It's this weird relationship.
And it's this, because they're called the loyalists, and it's this idea that that fear is their number one driver.
Right.
It's the thing that keeps them up at night. It's the thing that motivates them. But they're also incredibly loyal, and
Right.
that's created so much of the beautiful value in America.
Right.
Is this loyalty to family, loyalty to loved ones, loyalty to ideas. Of course, that also has downsides.
Sure.
But it's
the world, right? It's like everything's got this like 2 sides, and I am like being challenged with the idea of. The reason why we started talking about this is you asked me like, is my life driven by this thing of like change and and so like on one hand it is new experiences, new thoughts, all this, but there's this other side of me that's like very
you're loyal to what you already have,
and I'm sentimental. I love tradition. I am like. So I feel at odds a lot of times internally.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and the crazy thing about the world is that like both of those things are true and can exist. And like I think in another time I would have been, you got to be one or the other. And it's like, this is just like I'm not. So it's both.
Yeah.
But I do love new thoughts, new ideas. I find that I love, as much as I love them for myself, I love sharing them. Mm-hmm. Probably get some kind of like ego stroke from being, like the guy with the new thing, and like that's like telling everybody. But
how did you get started as a creator?
Early on, it was probably like awakened by babysitters who were like good artists. as a kid, like having. I remember I had a babysitter named Jill. I just was like, she's an awesome artist, and she would just draw things. I'm like, that's amazing. And I was so into that. And then the church that I grew up in, we had a lot of Hallmark employees. I'm from Kansas City. Hallmark Cards is based in Kansas City. We had like a bunch of Hallmark artists at our church. And like, so there was that kind of creative thing going on. And like, when my parents saw that I was like into drawing and stuff, they were like, here, go, like, why don't you go spend time with like Dan at Hallmark, And so like, that kind of, and my parents didn't necessarily like exude, like, I didn't see like a ton of creativity like outright in them, but they were like very much like wanting to foster and support what they saw in me. And then, piano lessons started early and ended almost as early. And then my mom played guitar. And so I think as soon as I was like, my hands were big enough to like form a chord, I was like trying to pick her guitar up and learn.
Oh, that's cool.
So yeah, she kind of taught me my first few chords on her guitar, and then I just ended up like running with that and finding some friends at school that also played. And we would teach each other like Pearl Jam songs. And
did you have a goal from the beginning where you were like, I'm gonna make it? Or
No way. No. Although when I was a kid, I like wanted, like I was mesmerized by Michael Jackson. Like I wanted to be, and there was the Michael Jackson thing, and then there was also this like show called Kids Incorporated. This is like showing how old I am, but it's like Kids Incorporated was kind of like the Mickey Mouse Club, but like for network television. And it was like on Saturday mornings, and it was basically like kids who were like dancing and singing, and it was like my window into some greater, like bigger world.
Yeah, and industry almost.
Yeah, and I was like, God, like I loved like dance and song and all that stuff. So I think if you would have asked me like back then, I would have said, yeah, I'm going to be Michael Jackson. And then, it wasn't until later that I was like started writing songs, and there was like an actual like, maybe I could write and perform songs for a living,
Yeah.
But never was it like, this is what I've been going for my whole life.
Did it kind of, because I know this is how it happened for me. It just kind of, I started doing it because I liked it, and then somebody's like, hey, you could do this. And then they like pay you money, or they give you an opportunity. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I have now experienced that I can do this.
Right.
It's the dream didn't quite work until you had the experience in some ways.
And I'm like, this might be the 6 in me too, but like it definitely helps me to have somebody call it out in me, and to say like, I see this, like, you should do this. Now, I mean, some people are like, might be like more just driven and like, I don't care what people say, like, I'm going to do this, and I'm a little more like, I don't know, honestly. Like, I don't know what I'm good. Like, I'm kind of good at some stuff, but like, so are a lot of people. And like, it really takes somebody to be like, no, like, or just responds to something I put out there that says like, oh, like, okay, like, I guess I'm just gonna like do that, try that again, and before you know it, you're recording a CD, and I don't know.
That totally resonates with me. I feel like everything I've ever started has just been me doing something because I'm like, oh, I would like this. This would be fun,
right? And
then people responded. They say, I like that too, and I go, oh, okay, cool. So this is for more than me. This is for other people as well. How do I keep on doing this?
Right.
And then the dream starts where I'm like, oh, I could do this and this and this.
Right.
And then it becomes my own again. But I feel like there's a point where it's almost handed off to outsiders.
Yeah.
And I say, hey, are you interested?
Right. And that's the part that I think that it's like so important, is putting it out there. And I think especially if you're if you've got everything riding on like, I'm going to be a musician, this better work, that can like impair you from ever putting it out there, because what if people say like, no, like, and so, but I think it's like such a critical component to put it out there. And maybe we've just benefited from not like having it like all figured out and controlled before we throw it out there. It's just been like, hey, just kind of try this. What do you think? And it's like, oh yeah, you like that? Okay. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because I don't know. I know this much, man. If I would have gone to Belmont University and like, this is what I'm going to study, and like, I'm going to be a singer-songwriter, I severely doubt that like I would have made it through that.
Yeah.
I would have run the gauntlet of like comparison to other people, and like because there's some talented dudes. I went to school in the middle of a cornfield in Illinois, and like there weren't very many people who were like writing their own songs and singing them.
Yeah.
So I kind of like stood out in a way, and I don't know.
My first foray into the world of creativity and into art was photography. And I grew up in a town of like 30,000 people.
Right.
And when it was a college town, and so when college students showed up, it like doubled.
Sure.
But it's still like a tiny town. And so I only had to get a little bit good at photography
Right.
for people to start praising me.
Right.
Because I could still be one of the top photographers in town as like a 17-year-old who's not that great at photography.
That's right.
And that's the confidence I needed. You know, if I had gone to some art school and I was in, you know, New York or LA or a photography hub, it just would not have, I wouldn't have gotten the encouragement I needed, and I also wouldn't have gotten the attention or I wouldn't have invested the time.
Right.
And I think it was really valuable for me to have that happen. And I actually, when I graduated from high school, I was thinking, man, I should just stay here and just run the photography scene in this town. I can be the best.
Right.
And I was considering not going to college or going to college and studying photography in town or something.
Right.
And I'm so glad that I chose to leave, go to a bigger city, and try to make it in this bigger city, because it caused me to grow. It caused me to push myself.
Yep.
But it would have probably been easy to stay stagnant in that same place.
Yeah, because it's like feeding your ego, you know.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to see like what things motivate people, you know. Like you and I might have been like, what we needed was people to say like, you're really good, and like that's what, and like some people actually would be more motivated by like someone saying like, you're not very good, you know.
Yeah, isn't that
like,
interesting?
Yeah, and or like, yeah, but like that's just probably our whatever, like this, our sevenness is like we love the Strokes.
What did you go to school for?
I went to school for industrial design, which
that's completely not music related at all.
Not music related at all. And for a long time I had to like tell people what that was. So I'm like in the habit of doing that. It's like product design, and the most famous product designer right now that people would know is Johnny Ive from Apple. You know, is that like on those Apple product, you know, videos was like, this is the most like advanced titanium body we've ever created, and it's beautiful, and you know, and that's what I went to school for. And at the time I was in school, it was a really exciting time in product design. It was the Volkswagen Beetle had just been the revamped one had been announced, or it was out. The Audi TT, which is like a little 2-door roadster that had come out. The Herman Miller Aeron chair, which is like
that's what I sit on at work.
That is like the chair. It was actually designed by alumni from my program.
Wow.
And the Apple, the iMac, the bubble iMac, the candy, you know. So like all of those things were happening, and then the what happened in the wake of the iMac was like everything become translucent, right? Like you've got translucent staplers, translucent. I
had a Game Boy that was translucent.
Yeah, everything became translucent, and yeah, there was a real public consciousness of wanting to buy stuff that was like, it looked good, you know, it was functional, and so I was like, it was amazing, and honestly, it still informs what I choose to buy. It also like what I learned also kind of helps me, you know, how I like release albums and kind of brand management, product management from a like music side of things.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm also kind of like, it's in the back of my mind, like I think that I will probably make something someday, you know. I'll probably, and whether that's like, you know, independently or with somebody else, but it hasn't left.
Yeah.
And I think it'd be fun to revisit.
Yeah. And if I were to place a guess, I would imagine that you, even though you're 37, are still figuring yourself out.
Oh man,
like,
yeah.
Your podcast is called Curiosity Habit.
Right.
And it's, you know, curiosity is in the name, and I think that's something you and I both have in common is a deep sense of, oh my gosh,
wonder.
Let's learn this thing. Yeah, wonder, figure this out, figure that out. and curiosity is such a valuable thing. But if you're curious and you follow that curiosity, it's not possible to stay the same person that you are.
That's true, man. It's true. Gosh. And that's where like the war inside of me is like happens, because and part of me is like afraid of changing too.
And so the interesting thing about that is probably the most valuable thing for that part is to stretch yourself, and you don't want to just like, you want to do it slowly. You want to take care of yourself, but there's some real value in that.
I know. I've definitely felt like I've been stretched a lot in the last couple of years, and just with everything that's going on politically and socially, and it's like I'm not one to just like volunteer like what I think about things. I'm just kind of like, we've all got opinions. Like, good for you. You got and I also kind of like can tell how much my ego can get in the way and start like if I like volunteer something like an opinion, I'm really just like trying to bolster my own like are you with me or are you not with me? And it's this relationship of like, okay, I can get caught in like, as I'm forming hard lines around things, I'm doing the same thing that the guy on the other side of the line is doing. I'm like saying like, well, this is what I believe, and like, are you with me or not? And like at that point, I'm kind of like doing the same thing that the person that I'm like pointing the finger at's doing. And I'm like, what does it look like to recognize like our sameness and the fact that like what's beating through the blood that's going through your veins right now is the same thing. We're like made up of the same molecules and everything. Like we're like on the same rhythm. And so I actually, and this is kind of going off of, I'm off track. I'm getting on a pedestal, but this is something I'm like being challenged by right now. Like individuality and uniqueness and specialness, I think is like maybe not as important to me right now as like seeking out sameness and commonality, because especially in the volatility of our culture right now, like we don't need more division. And when I put like a stake in the ground and say like, this is who I am, what I think, what I believe, it's like I'm like all of a sudden it's like divisive, and I'm trying to be like open. I don't know. It's such a weird thing, man. I'm trying to be open, but it's hard because I'm also like an egomaniac, likes to feel like he's right, and gets offended,
me too.
And gets offended if like somebody disagrees with me, and it's like
that's something I've been thinking about a lot, especially since the election. And it's funny, you and I alluded to this earlier, but we did not vote for Trump.
Right.
And election night, you invited me over to your house.
Yeah.
And you also, some of the other people at your house were people who did support Trump.
Yeah.
And it was actually a really, I think, healthy experience to be in this room watching the votes come in and seeing people who didn't feel the same way that I did, but were like great people. Like
I know.
They like queso just like I love queso. And though there's a lot of things that are like really important issues that I would, I want to really address, and I think it's important to address and to use my privilege to speak out on, I don't want to forget other people's humanness in that.
Yes, it's so real, and I forget that, and I have to be like reminded of it. And I have a bunch of friends who think, and the thing is that like, and I'm guilty of this, so I'm not like saying that like this is like how I live my life, like, but if I just like surround myself with like people, information, like, on down the line that like supports my ego and like what the structure that I've built to feel like a person, like this false self, this like, as I walk into the world, this is who I want to be, then I'm like, it's a closed system,
Mm-hmm.
It's not, like it's not saying anything other than like I'm really afraid, and I just surround myself with people that like reinforce my beliefs.
Yeah.
You know? And so I'm kind of like, man, until I don't do that, I probably don't have like much ground to stand on. You know what I'm saying?
For the longest time, I think I had maybe too easy of a time just saying, this is what I believe on the internet. And really then you're just arguing with people who, like you were saying before, like you're just going up against them and you're just like the other person on the other side of this issue.
Right.
And so now I'm trying to say, okay, cool. If I care about this, you know, of course, one way for me to take action on this is to use my influence, to use my platform to have a conversation.
Yeah.
But, you know, also so is like using my body to like march in the streets or to protect somebody or to make phone calls and call representatives. You know, I think that there's a lot of really practical ways that we can just prove our beliefs rather than state them. And I feel like I've gotten really good at like figuring out what I believe and what I don't believe. But if I lost my ability to communicate all of that, what does it matter?
Right.
So,
and it's like, dude, every war is fought around belief. Every war is because one person believes one thing and somebody else believes something else. And it's like, you know, John Mayer writes about that. Have you heard that song? Like, it's freaking awesome. Like, and you realize that like belief is quite different than faith and surrender. You know, belief and faith are like not the same things. And belief is making hardline, like this is what's the way it is. And I don't know what it is, but I don't know if it's because I'm like old or because I've like seen a lot but I just wonder, I have a harder time making like definitive like statements now, you know? And whether it's like just because I just don't know. I don't know. And not like I don't know, I haven't made up my mind, but like I don't know, the world is complicated and so gray.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
That's like, so how do you like hold that but then still like show up for like demand justice and like care about the poor and like the marginalized people, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing.
That's good. And it all comes back to curiosity too, you know? You can take these things, these beliefs and ideas you have, but you have to constantly be curious about what are people saying on the other side?
Yes.
What's an experience that would contradict this?
Yes, I know. And until I can hold their viewpoint as important as my own, like something is like I'm still being fed by my like self-righteous ego, you know?
That's good.
And if their viewpoint isn't as valid as mine, you know, I'm just using, you know, I'm just like it's like I'm trying to bolster myself, you know. And I just want to be like, I want to be in a place where like it's okay if somebody doesn't agree with me, and where I'm actually like making room. Now, granted, there's obviously things that like this I'm not talking about like sex trafficking or child slavery, you know, like things that like are obviously wrong, and the way that we interpret like the world and God and everything, I think is like up for grabs.
Yeah,
a little bit.
Yeah, and I think truth is out there. I think it's just we all see things through these filters that we grew up with or that we have because of where we're at, and so the goal is to get rid of those filters and by continually challenging them.
Yes.
Man, I feel like this is actually the perfect time to transition into the part of every show where I love to ask a few of my favorite questions.
Great.
My first question is this. How would you describe the kind of person that you most admire in the world?
The kind of person that I most admire in the world is someone who is like meek and empathetic, who listens, doesn't react, is not impulsive. I guess like they exude a peace and ease, about their life. Doesn't mean that like life is easy, but that there's some level of like rising above. It's probably a spiritual like practice. There's a discipline where there's a real connection to God, or a higher power, or like however you want to say that that is changing the way that affects the way that they live. I think that's and that they're like motivated by that and are compelled, to move into the world because of that connection.
That's awesome. What are you consuming that you love right now?
Consuming?
Something that is just getting you excited. A TV show, a movie.
Well, I just watched Hip Hop Evolution, which is like a 3 or 4 part documentary series on Netflix about like where hip hop came from.
Wow.
And it basically like starts from like the very, like it actually like gives a little bit of like, precursor to like pre when it happened, just to like set the table for like, this is the environment that this was, this happened in, and then gets you all the way through like NWA, which was like, I guess actually gets you through Dr. Dre's The Chronic, which was like early 90s.
Great.
So I have a feeling that they're going to do like a second season, and there will be like from right after The Chronic till whatever. But it was awesome. It was like really fascinating.
That's great.
I loved that. I love everything. I mean, from a material standpoint, like I love what Adidas is making right now. I'm a big fan of Adidas. I'm a sneaker guy. I've been a Nike guy my whole life, and currently like really impressed by and like inspired by like Adidas's like they're making new designs that are like becoming classics. And whereas
seems like they're innovating instead of kind of just following Nike's lead, like most people have been doing for years.
And Nike, even like within themselves, is like just redoing old designs, which is awesome. They've got like this huge like bank of copyrights that are classics, and it's like so valuable, and they'll probably always be number one. But what Adidas is doing is like they're writing new hit songs, and I feel like Nike's remixing hit songs, and it's like, okay, cool, you put out another greatest hits package, like that's awesome, but like I like that they're like giving me something new to listen to,
That's awesome.
Yeah, so
that's a good one.
Yeah, thanks.
Based on the ways you've chosen to step out and live your life differently, what's one thing you'd encourage someone else to do in their own life today?
Take chances. Like, take chances and put yourself out there and listen to people and don't listen to people, I think that if there's something that you can't shake, if there's like a drive or a passion or something that you just like can't get rid of, like just go for it, and like if that's not the thing, then like somewhere along the way you're gonna like it's gonna lead you to where you're supposed to be. But like go, like move, and we don't get anywhere like sitting around and like talking about the thing or like dreaming about the thing. Like you gotta move in a direction, and I think like just do it, and you don't have to wait until you have the money, or you don't have to wait until like the right people take note. You can like get resourceful and like figure out how to make the like version 1.0 and like test it out. Make the movie on your iPhone. Record the song on your iPhone. Just like use what you've got and do it. And like hopefully hopefully that and then share it. And maybe if there's a way to remove the expectation of like, this is going to lead to this thing, and that's going to only allow you to like love the process more and love it more, and it's going to take the like demand. It's going to remove the demand off of the thing to do it for you. If you love to write songs, then freaking write songs, and like and that's it, you know? And like maybe people will like the songs too, but like that's maybe not like you're liking to write songs has nothing to do with whether or not people like them. It's because it gives you life, and like you got to do it. And if there's an opportunity to share it, maybe you love, like that's part of that, closes the circle for you, you know, like then take the opportunity to do that, you know. But I think too, like knowing yourself is important, you know, and like doing some kind of like becoming, you know, a little more aware of like what motivates you, and like it will help to know like what steps to take.
Yeah.
So
that's good.
Yeah.
Man, Matt, this is so
good. Dude, Branden, thanks for having me, man.
Dude, if people want to follow along with you online and hear your music, what's the best way to do that?
I mean, I'm on Spotify. My last name is weird. It's like Hertz Rent-A-Car with a W instead of an H. So you can find me on Spotify or iTunes or wherever you listen to music on the internet. And I'm on Twitter and all that stuff. It's just at Matt Wertz. Snapchat, however, there's an underscore between my first and last name. I didn't get there soon enough, man. I don't know who that guy is. But yeah, that's how you can do it.
Amazing, man.
Yeah.
Dude, this has seriously been great.
Thank you so much.
I'm so glad
man.
we got to do this.
Great conversation. Thanks, Branden.
Thank you so much to each and every one of you who tuned into Sounds Good this week. If you liked this episode and want to make the whole Sounds Good team smile, we'd be honored if you left a review on iTunes. It's super easy. All you have to do is search for Sounds Good on iTunes or in your podcast app, and then tap Write a Review. It really helps people find the show, and we really appreciate it. If you want a little bit more positivity in your life outside of Sounds Good, I actually send out this weekly newsletter every Tuesday called The Good Newsletter. It's got 5 curated good news stories that remind us that the world is full of goodness if we just take the time to notice it. You can join the thousands of people who have already subscribed at goodnewsletter.org. And this week and every week, you can find and share the episode page for this week's episode of Sounds Good at soundsgoodpodcast.com. This show, Sounds Good with Branden Harvey, is part of the Gradient Podcast Network and is created in collaboration between Gradient and I. And with that, that's a wrap for this week's podcast. I'll see you around the internet at Branden Harvey everywhere, and I'll talk to you next week when we get the opportunity to learn from another inspiring person. Sound good?